What if I told you that nearly 90% of startups fail, and most founders don't even realize they're failing until it's already too late? Think about that. Every day, people around the world take a huge risk. They leave stable jobs, invest their savings, and dedicate years of their lives to building something they truly believe in. They have passion. They have ambition. Many of them are highly skilled and educated. Some even have access to funding and strong networks. On paper, they should succeed, but most of them don't. And here's what makes this even more surprising. These founders are not careless. They are not lazy. In fact, many of them work harder than ever before. Long nights, constant pressure, endless problem solving. They sacrifice time, money, and often their personal lives just to make their startup work. So why do they still fail? Why do intelligent-driven people lose everything while a small percentage of startups go on to become massive success stories? Is it just bad luck? Is it timing? Or is there something deeper that most people completely misunderstand? Because if you're thinking about starting a business one day, or if you already have an idea you believe in, this question matters more than you think. This is not just about startups, this is about how wealth is created, and how it is lost. Because the difference between success and failure in business is often not obvious in the beginning. In fact, many startups look successful right before they collapse. They raise funding. They gain users. They get attention, but behind the scenes, something is broken. And when that hidden problem finally shows up, everything falls apart today. We're going to uncover the real reasons why most startups fail. Not the obvious reasons you hear everywhere, but the deeper patterns that quietly destroy businesses from the inside. And once you understand this, you will never look at startups the same way again. Most people think they understand why startups fail. Ask anyone, and you'll hear the same answers. They ran out of money, they didn't market well enough, they had too much competition. It just wasn't the right time. And while these explanations sound logical, they miss the real problem, because these are not causes, they are symptoms. The biggest misunderstanding about startups is this. People believe failure happens suddenly, at the end of the journey, but in reality, most startups are already failing from the very beginning. They just don't realize it yet. The idea feels exciting. The product looks promising. The founders are confident. Everything seems fine on the surface, but underneath, there is a hidden flaw that slowly grows over time. Here's the truth, most people don't talk about startups don't fail because they run out of money. They run out of money because something is fundamentally broken in the business. Money is just the fuel. If the engine isn't working, more fuel won't fix it. In fact, it can make things worse. Many startups raise funding and feel like they are succeeding. They hire employees, spend on marketing, and expand quickly. From the outside, it looks like growth. But inside, the business model may not be working at all. Customers might not truly need the product. They might not be willing to pay for it. Or the cost of acquiring customers might be too high. These problems don't show up immediately. At first, everything looks fine. Growth numbers can even look impressive, but over time, reality starts to catch up. Losses increase. Cash burns faster. Pressure builds, and by the time the founders realize what's happening, it's already too late to fix. That's why so many startups fail in a similar way. Not because of one big mistake at the end, but because of small hidden problems that were there from the start. To truly understand why most startups fail, you need to shift how you think about what a startup actually is. Startup is not just a small version of a company. It is a search for a working business model. And this is where most founders go wrong. They don't treat it like a search. They treat it like a finished plan. They build a product. They launch it, and then they try to force it to succeed. But real success doesn't come from forcing an idea. It comes from finding something that naturally works, and most startups fail because they miss this process. Let's break it down into the key reasons. 1. No real market. Need. This is the biggest reason startups fail. Many founders build something based on assumptions. They think people will want it. They believe it solves a problem. But belief is not enough. The market only responds to real pain. If your product is not solving a clear, important problem, people won't pay for it. And if people don't pay, the business cannot survive. This mistake often comes from building what is interesting instead of what is necessary. 2. Scaling too early. Another major reason is trying to grow before the business is ready. Startups often rush into marketing, hiring, and expansion. They spend money to acquire users. They focus on growth numbers, but growth without a solid foundation is dangerous. If your product is not truly valuable, scaling just increases your losses. It creates the illusion of success, while quietly draining your resources. 3. Weak business model. 11. If people like your product, your startup can still fail, because attention is not the same as revenue. A business needs a clear way to make money. It needs to earn more than it spends. Many startups ignore this in the beginning. They focus on users instead of profits. But eventually, reality catches up. If your costs are higher than your income, your startup will collapse, no matter how popular it is. 4. Founder decision. Many failures come down to the founder, not because they lack intelligence, but because they make emotional decisions. They become attached to their idea. They ignore feedback. They resist change, but the market is always right. Successful founders adapt. They test, they change direction when needed. Those who don't often fail, no matter how hard they work. Let's look at a real-world example that perfectly shows how even the most well-funded startups can fail. Quibi. Quibi was not a small startup. It raised nearly $2 billion before it even launched. It had experienced founders, major investors, and backing from some of the biggest names in entertainment. On paper, it looked like a guaranteed success. The idea sounded strong. Quibi focused on short-form, high-quality video content designed specifically for mobile users. The content was professionally produced, featuring big actors and directors. Everything was built for people to watch on their phones in short bursts. At first glance, it made sense. People love watching content on their phones. Short videos were already popular, so combining premium production with mobile convenience seemed like a winning formula. But here's where things started to go wrong. First, Quibi misunderstood the market. People were already consuming short-form video on platforms like YouTube and TikTok. These platforms were not only popular, they were also free and deeply integrated into users' daily habits. Quibi tried to compete, but charged a subscription fee from the start. Second, they misunderstood user behavior. Users didn't necessarily want premium short videos. They preferred fast, engaging, and often user-generated content that felt natural and social. Quibi's content, while high quality, didn't match how people actually consumed media on their phones. Third, they scaled too quickly. Instead of testing and adapting, Quibi launched big. They invested heavily in content marketing and partnerships without fully validating whether users truly wanted the product. And the result? Within just 6 months, Quibi shut down completely. Despite billions in funding, despite strong leadership, despite massive expectations, this example reveals a powerful truth. Money, talent, and effort cannot fix a broken business model. If the product does not match real user needs, and if the business model doesn't work, failure becomes almost inevitable. And that's exactly what happened here. So what can you learn from all of this? The most important lesson is simple, but powerful. Startups don't fail because people don't try hard enough. They fail because they build the wrong thing, in the wrong way. At the wrong time. Success in startups is not about working the hardest. It is about working on the right problem. And that begins with understanding what a startup really is. Startup is not a business that has already been figured out. It is a process of discovery. You are not building a finished product. You are testing, learning, and adjusting until something works. This is where many founders go wrong. They fall in love with their idea instead of focusing on the outcome. But the market does not care about your idea. It only cares about value. If your product solves a real problem, people will use it. If it makes their life easier, faster, or better, they will pay for it. If it does not, nothing else matters. Another key lesson is this: validation is more important than vision. Many founders start with a big vision. They imagine scaling, branding, and long-term success. But before any of that matters, you need one thing: proof that people actually want what you are building. Without that, everything else becomes risky. Testing small ideas, gathering feedback, and making improvements is far more valuable than building something big without direction. You also need to understand the importance of timing. Even great ideas can fail if the market is not ready, and sometimes average ideas succeed simply because the timing is right. That's why successful founders pay close attention to the market. They don't just build what they like. They build what the market is ready for. Finally, flexibility is critical. The most successful founders are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who adapt the fastest. If something is not working, they change direction. They are not emotionally attached to one idea, they are committed to finding what works. That mindset is what separates those who fail from those who succeed. If this breakdown changed the way you think about startups, then you're already ahead of most people, because now you understand something very important. Startups don't fail randomly. They fail for clear, predictable reasons. And once you see those patterns, you can start making better decisions. You can avoid the mistakes that destroy most businesses before they even get a chance to succeed. But this is just one piece of the bigger picture. If you really want to understand how money, investing, and wealth actually work, not just the basic advice everyone repeats, then this channel is built for you. On the Geeky Investor, we break down complex ideas into simple, practical lessons you can actually use. We don't just talk about success stories, we analyze failures, we study real businesses, and we uncover the strategies that separate people who struggle financially from those who build long-term wealth, because understanding money is not about luck, it's about knowledge, it's about seeing patterns others miss, and it's about making smarter decisions over time. So if you're serious about improving your financial future, building a business, or just understanding how the system really works, make sure you subscribe to the Geeky Investor. And don't just stop at watching one video. Go deeper, watch more, learn more, because the more you understand, the more control you gain over your financial life. And that is how real wealth is built.